All right, folks, as I said last night, I'm going to call this race as I see it, better or worse. And DeSantis rolled out a campaign. It was just a matter of time, obviously, before people began scrutinizing absolutely everything about him. And whether they find, well, in a, let's call it a rare stroke of journalism, NBC broke a story about a potential real problem for the governor in both perception and the legal world. The issue is that Ron, as the sitting governor, has business with these lobbyists. Everyone does. Every elected official does at some point or another. All right. Now imagine yourself as a lobbyist trying to get something passed, and the guy who is making the decision for your client asks you for a political donation or a campaign donation. Any reasonable person in the world would be worried, like, hey, look, if I don't donate, does he ice me out? Do I not get the job done for my client? Puts them in a tough spot. Ethical concerns. If I do donate, does it look like pay for play? What do you do? So Trump is absolutely going to pummel him on this. Remember, Trump self-funded his campaign in the beginning, giving himself enough seed cash to not have to rely on literally anybody. And because of that, like the high volumes of small dollar donations funded his entire campaign. He raised like more money from little donations than anybody ever before, even more than Bernie Sanders. Part of his appeal was that he wasn't beholden to anybody. That's still part of the appeal. Any donors and that, you know, all those stuff, the special interest groups didn't have any sway over him because he didn't need them. But Ron does. And that's what's going to be on Trump's buffet of offensive attacks. Joining me now to discuss former Trump campaign aide Rick Gates and branding advisor to CEOs, the author of Intra-Branding, the Keystone of Corporate Agility, Marc Rudov. All right, Marc, I'll go to you first on this one. All right, so the perception obviously is not great. If you have to do business, do you donate, do you not donate? What do you think these lobbyists are going through, and do you think there's some serious ethical or even maybe legal concerns here?
I think that's an understatement, Carl. I mean, I looked at the FEC website, couldn't find anything about this. I looked at the Florida state website and couldn't find anything about this. I think that what DeSantis has done is he's found some kind of unethical loophole. And I also went to Trump's Truth Social page to see if he was jumping all over this, and he wasn't. So I was curious whether it's a real story or not, but assuming it is, and Trump makes a big deal of it, this could really sink DeSantis. The thing is, he's behind in the polls, and he's been behind in the polls, yet he's outraised Trump. And you have to ask yourself, how did he do that? Especially after he announced he raised $8.6 million in 24 hours.
Yeah.
How did he do that? Well, I think we now have a clue.
Right. Well, you know, Rick, I'm not going to condemn DeSantis out the gate. I want to find out a little bit more about this, but the optics are bad. You have to agree, no?
Yeah, and here's the biggest difference, Carl. This is, as you pointed out at the very beginning, this is very common. Both sides do it. They solicit contributions for their campaigns. However, in this case, it's state officials. That is brazen. That is kind of unprecedented in terms of what they are actually doing at a state level. State employees reaching out to lobbyists. And by the way, they're still going through their budget cycle. So DeSantis still has line item veto that he can influence. And they, by the way, they're keeping lists of people that contribute and don't contribute. So I think there is a much bigger legal implication here at the state level. Honestly, I don't think nationally many people are going to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and like we just said, there was, Marc pointed out he couldn't even find anything on Trump Truth Social about it. But Rick, staying with you, do you think this is something that Trump's going to kind of get some steam on, be able to, really, I mean, look, his attacks on Ron, I haven't been thrilled about him. However, this is a little bit more legitimate than just calling him, Ron DeSanctimonious or Rhino Ron.
Oh, there's no question he's going to light him up on this. And I think when you look at it, Trump came in 2016. I think this is one of the things that people probably didn't understand about him. He came in with no IOUs. He didn't solicit a lot of contributions. He didn't have to because he was never elected to office. DeSantis represents among himself and other politicians of his guild that they take contributions, so they have these IOUs that they owe people. They owe lobbyists. They owe donors. And that is a big problem when it comes to making decisions at a political level because it's highly influenced by money.
Yeah, but Marc, Ron DeSantis is hardly the first sitting, seat holder to run for anything ever. So is this just like flown under the radar for literally everybody else, or is this the first time it's actually been done?
Well, I have no idea whether it's the first time it's been done, but it's been exposed, and it makes DeSantis look bad. I mean, having his staffers solicit money for him, this just is unethical, and it doesn't look good for him at all. And it shows that he can't do it outside of his staff. There's something wrong. He's also in alliance with big tech, and big tech is evil. And there's a lot of support coming from big tech, which I find confounding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Rick, the other thing, too, is like, look, a lot of the true MAGA base. I mean, Rick, you and I have been in this world since pretty much day one. The true problem that, you know, is going to have to be, like, he's got Paul Ryan sitting behind him. And, like, look, and I say it all the time. I served with Ron DeSantis. I like the guy. I don't think he's some rhino globalist, but he does have, you know, Paul Ryan, who's not the most conservative Republican ever, sitting right behind him. He's got questionable things. How does he get around some of this stuff?
Well, it's going to be very difficult for him because he's trying to play multiple sides, and that's not going to work in the end. He's trying to pull part of the base away from Trump. He's trying to recruit the establishment. It doesn't work like that, and he's going to find that out very quickly, you know, as soon as the first primaries roll around, if not sooner. So I think what he needs to do is figure out what he actually stands for and represents. That was supposed to come out in the, you know, campaign announcement. It didn't. Right. So he's really got to figure out very quickly what his message is going to be and make sure that message resonates with particularly that base, because that's where he has to draw votes from. He's not going to be able to do it in the primaries if he doesn't come up with a better strategy than the one he has now.
Yeah, Mark, I got about 30 seconds. How does he draw that line?
Well, the other thing I wanted to add, Carl, is that considering that his rollout was a disaster on Twitter Spaces, it's still amazing that he raised so much money. Where is it coming from? How did he do that? Yeah. Considering it was such a disaster and poorly planned, poorly conceived, you have to wonder, where is this money coming from?
True.
It's
lobbyists.
It's just not right to be using your staff to raise money for you. It just isn't right.
Well, there are very clear ethical concerns there. We'll follow this story and find out more about it. But look, if Bernie Sanders can raise money being a socialist, like, I'm not shocked anybody can raise money. Rick Gates, Marc Rudov, we appreciate you joining me tonight.
Good to see you, Carl.
All right.
Okay.